On April 5, 1531, London awoke beneath a grey sky, as though the heavens themselves anticipated the horror about to unfold. At Smithfield, a place usually reserved for cattle markets and executions, an unusual sight greeted the growing crowd. In the center of the square, a massive bronze cauldron bubbled above a roaring fire. The people murmured with unease, for today's execution promised to be unlike any they had ever witnessed. The condemned man was Richard Roose, a cook in the household of Bishop John Fisher of Rochester. His pale, frightened face betrayed the terror within as he was led to the cauldron that would serve as his grave. He was to be boiled a leva, punishment recently decreed by King Henry VIII himself. To understand how an ordinary cook came to such an end, one must turn back several weeks. In February 1531, England was in turmoil. Henry VIII sought to annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon, so that he might wed Anne Boleyn. The issue divided the realm. The king's supporters on one side, and the conservative clergy who regarded marriage as sacred and indissoluble on the other. Among the most outspoken of Catherine's defenders was Bishop John Fisher, a man of strict conscience and formidable courage. His opposition earned him the enmity of both Henry and the ambitious Boleyn family. Fisher lived under constant fear of assassination. He took elaborate precautions with his food, sleeping in different chambers each night. Yet, despite his vigilance, danger came from within his own kitchen. On February 18th, Roose prepared a thick soup for the bishop's table, secretly lacing it with a mysterious powder. Later, he claimed he thought it merely a purgative, meant to cause discomfort, rather than death, a cruel prank, but not, in his mind, a mortal crime. At that meal, Fisher ate little, but his guests consumed more. According to custom, the leftovers were distributed to beggars waiting outside the residence. Before long, terrible pains afflicted all who had eaten the dish: vomiting, convulsions, cold sweats. Two of the poor who had gratefully received their portion, Bennet Kerwin and Alice Trya, died in agony. Fisher survived only because of his small intake. The poisoning provoked a storm. Henry VIII, upon hearing the news, was furious. Though Fisher was his enemy, the attack was seen as a direct threat to the sanctity of all authority. If a bishop could be poisoned, what security did the king himself possess? Roose was quickly apprehended while attempting to flee London. Imprisoned in the Tower, he was tortured on the rack until he confessed to adding the powder, though he continued to insist he had not known it was deadly. What followed was extraordinary. On February 28, Henry VIII appeared before Parliament in person, something rarely done by monarchs, to denounce the crime. He declared poisoning to be not merely murder, but high treason against the realm itself. Parliament hastily approved a new law, 22 Henry VIII, Chapter 9, which established boiling alive as the punishment for poisoners. The law was retroactive, created specifically to condemn Roose. The sentence was carried out on that grim April morning. A vast crowd pressed into Smithfield, some treating the event as grotesque entertainment. Vendors sold food and drink as the fire roared beneath the cauldron. Guards stripped the trembling cook and raised him above the bubbling water. A priest mumbled a quick prayer, and then the executioners lowered him in. The spectacle was ghastly. First his legs were submerged, and he screamed as his skin blistered and sloughed away. The second immersion took him to the chest. The clear water turned pink with his dissolving flesh. By the third and final plunge, Roose was beyond coherent cries, his body writhing until death delivered its final mercy. The crowd was shaken, some fainted, others turned away in horror. Richard Roose's execution was not unique for long. In 1542, a woman named Margaret Davy was likewise boiled alive for alleged poisoning. Only under the reign of Henry's son, Edward VI, was the barbaric punishment abolished. The deeper meaning of Roose's fate, however, lay in the politics of the moment. Some believed Henry's fury sprang from a genuine terror of poisoning. Others suspected the king sought to quash rumors that Anne Boleyn or her family had orchestrated the plot against Fisher. By executing Roose in such a spectacular fashion, the king could redirect suspicion and assert his absolute control. Fisher himself would not escape doom. In 1535, he was executed for refusing to acknowledge Henry as supreme head of the Church of England. His head, stuck upon a spike on London Bridge, became a grim warning to others who defied the king. Anne Boleyn, too, would meet her end in 1536, accused of treason and adultery in a trial widely considered fabricated. As for Henry VIII, he continued his turbulent reign, breaking from Rome, marrying for more wives, and ruling with ever-growing brutality. His paranoia left England scarred, and his reign forever associated with blood and tyranny. Today, Smithfield is a bustling commercial district. No plaque marks the site of Roose's torment. Few passers-by are aware that beneath their feet, nearly 5 centuries ago, a man was slowly boiled alive in a cauldron. His story endures not only as a reminder of human cruelty, but also of how power can bend law into instruments of terror. Richard Roose's fate carried a macabre irony. A cook who spent his life preparing food in pots ended his life as though he were an ingredient in one.